Hello, everyone. My name is Eleanor Wright. I am 48 years old. I don't know how to begin this story because this is not something I ever planned to tell. Some lives are not lived loudly. They don't demand attention. They don't ask to be seen. They simply exist, quietly carrying weight that no one notices. And later, they are remembered even more quietly. I wasn't always just a mother before the world knew me by that name. I was just a woman trying to understand who she was. I had dreams, not the kind people clap for, not the kind that need applause, just honest ones. I wanted to study literature. I loved words. I loved how stories could hold pain without breaking. I imagined quiet mornings, sunlight through a small window, books stacked on a little table, and a life that felt calm and complete. I didn't want much, just enough to feel like myself. My husband's name was Daniel Wright. When we first met, he spoke about forever, as if it was guaranteed, as if love was a contract that time could never cancel. He promised stability. He promised presence. He promised that we would grow together. I believed him because when you're young, you believe love is enough. Then our son was born. His name is Lucas. The moment I held him, everything else stepped back. The world became smaller and clearer at the same time. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and without anyone asking me, I chose him over everything. Even my dreams didn't argue. They stepped aside quietly. For a while, we were a family, not perfect, but together. There was laughter, shared dinners, ordinary days that felt safe. And then slowly, Daniel began to disappear. Not physically at first, emotionally. He was there, but not really present. He spoke less. He listened less. Sometimes he would sit beside me, but his mind was already somewhere else. The silence between us grew heavier than words. The house felt full, but somehow empty. One evening, he packed a bag. The sound of the zipper felt louder than his voice. He didn't look at me while closing it. He said he needed time. He said he felt lost. He said he would come back. He never did. That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom, sitting on the cold floor, pressing my hand against my mouth so no sound escaped. Lucas was sleeping, and I didn't want him to hear pain before he even understood the world. I learned early that mothers cry where no one hears. The next morning, I woke up early, made breakfast, pressed my face into a smile, and went to work. That was the day I learned how to be strong without choosing to be. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes with fever, sometimes with tears dried on my cheeks. My body was always tired, but my mouth never admitted it. There were days when money wasn't enough. Days when I counted coins before buying groceries. I would put more food on Lucas's plate and tell him I had already eaten. Sometimes he looked at me unsure. I smiled anyway. Hunger was easier than letting him feel lack. He believed me, and I let that lie keep him safe. I learned how to smile while my hands trembled, while my back ached, while my heart carried more than it was ever meant to. At night, no matter how exhausted I was, I read him stories. My eyes burned. My voice shook. Some nights I could barely keep them open. But he listened like every word mattered. And somehow that made everything worth it. There was a time when I was accepted into a night college program. It was my chance to study again, to feel like Eleanor, not just someone's mother. I held that acceptance letter for a long time, but Lucas needed school supplies, new shoes, a better future. So I folded that letter and placed it in a drawer carefully, like something fragile, like a version of myself I would never meet again. Some dreams don't end. They just go silent. Lucas grew up fast. He became confident, independent. People told me I was a great mother. They never saw the nights I cried alone in the kitchen, holding the sink just to stay standing. They never saw the fear of not knowing if tomorrow would be easier. But I never complained. Love doesn't complain. When Lucas became a teenager, he spoke less. Sometimes he sighed when I asked questions. Sometimes he said, "Mom, you won't understand." I nodded. I always nodded. I never reminded him of what I had given up because real love doesn't keep records. And he never knew how expensive my silence was. When he left for college, I helped him pack. I folded his clothes neatly, as if order could stop time. I smiled the whole time. When the door closed, the house felt empty in a way words can't explain. That night, I sat on his bed and cried until morning. But when he called, I told him I was fine because mothers are always fine. Years passed. Calls became shorter. Messages became rare. I told myself he was busy. I never wanted to be a burden. My hands started shaking, not because I was old, but because I was tired for too many years. My body aged faster than my years. Every evening, I kept my phone close just in case. Help is dangerous, but mothers carry it anyway. One winter afternoon, there was a knock on the door. It was Lucas, older, different. I hugged him longer than he expected. We sat in the kitchen. He talked about his life, his work, his plans. I listened. I wanted to tell him everything, the nights, the fear, the sacrifices, but I said nothing. Before leaving, he asked, "Are you okay, Mom?" I smiled and said, "Always." After he left, the house became silent again. I am not angry. I am not asking for thanks. I just want to be remembered, not for what I gave up, but for the love that stayed. My name is Eleanor Wright. I am 48 years old, and this is the truth of my life. A mother's sacrifice is silent but priceless.